Dynamite Network presents Football Time.
Hey, and welcome to the Football Time Show. We're here for college football week 12. Our man Dynamite David is with us, coming straight out of Club Dynamite today. Are you ready to get into some college football for week 12, Dynamite?
I'm ready for it. Season's wrapping up. Things are getting exciting. Stuff's starting to fall in place. 1 week until rivalry weekend.
Yeah, this is sort of a medium week here. A lot of, big point spreads in a lot of matchups, but there are some good matchups, a couple of really big sort of small school matchups that are going to be fun to get into as well. But, we'll kick things off here, and we'll kick things off, kind of a matchup that I think everybody thought was going to be exciting. Turns out one's a super dud and one has played bad all year long but only has one loss. And Iowa State and Oklahoma here. Iowa State coming off another pretty bad week, losing to Texas Tech. So this goes about 3.5 for Oklahoma. I want to take Iowa State here because they've been so dominant over Oklahoma, especially against the spread recently. But I just don't know if I can quite make myself do that. I'm curious your take on the Oklahoma-Iowa State game here.
Well, the good news is Iowa State's not playing for a Big 12 championship. So I don't know if you saw that interview. If he was in an SEC school, he would have been eaten alive by now. But I'd have to lean Oklahoma here. But I mean, really, both of these schools are kind of in the same position. Just really been limping through the season all year, and I mean, really, I'm not going to make a play here just because I can't tell between. Really, honestly, you could put these guys in the same uniforms and you wouldn't be able to tell much between the two teams.
Yeah, both really disappointing. That's why I think I ended up passing because, Oklahoma might be 9-1, but I think they could very easily just be in the same, record sphere as Iowa State here and be 6-4.
Definitely.
Both quarterbacks were pretty bad last week for Oklahoma, who just basically got beat up by Baylor. It wasn't, the score was closer than what even that made that look. Baylor just dominated that game on both lines of scrimmage. Caleb Williams was really, really poor. So I think that's sort of going to carry over for Oklahoma, who's been so poor all year long. Finally got bit with it in that Baylor game. But I don't know if Iowa State's capable of putting in that performance. I don't think we've seen that performance all year long. Every time they've gone up against, anyone with a little bit of pushback, they've lost. Other than, I guess you could say they, beat up on Texas. But I don't know if we're going to preview that. But they have their own issues in that world. So, it's really hard for me, even though Iowa State has owned this, against the spread record against Oklahoma with Matt Campbell there. I just think you probably got to stay away, especially since I thought going in this line would probably be more in the 6 range than the 4 range. But a part of me still just wants to nip on that Iowa State football team right here, thinking Oklahoma maybe goes super in the tank these last couple games. All right, let's go to a fun one out in the ACC. We're going Wake Forest versus Clemson. This one's really, really fun and really interesting. Clemson, about a 4.5 point favorite, 4.5 at most places. I really like Wake here. I think Wake will be able to score on this Clemson defense, especially with some injuries that Clemson's defense has had. The question is, can Clemson score on this Wake Forest defense and cover this spread, or can Wake pull this off, pull out a 10-1 season and ride into this ACC championship game? Technically speaking, they aren't theoretically out of the playoff mix either if they win all the way out. So, it could be an interesting game overall.
Yeah, I'm excited to see this. I think this game is play a little bit better, so that's exciting. They seem to have found their offense a little bit the past few weeks. So I think it's going to be a shootout, and it's like you said, I think Wake Forest has the edge when it comes to a shootout.
Yeah, I think so. My worry would be if you're on the Wake Forest side is Clemson has seemed to have found their running game. You mentioned it a little bit, and the way Wake has defended, if Clemson can sort of just keep the possessions low in this game, Wake probably won't be able to open up that offense like it has been and get into that 40s because I'm assuming they probably will have to be in and around 38 to 45 points to win this game. And I don't know if this game will placate to them getting that many possessions in this game. So I really like Wake here, but that would be my nervous spot on the Clemson side of things, that they just sort of, 5 yards, first down, every drive, and it limits this game to maybe a couple possession a game, a half. And even if Wake is efficient like they've been on offense, they've, scored 3 out of 4 times in each one, and then they aren't quite getting in that scoring range that I think. But overall, do you have a like on one of these sides?
I haven't picked this one yet, but I'm leaning Wake for sure. Just like you said, I don't know. Even if Clemson can score, I don't know if they're going to score as frequently as Wake can. Clemson may be scoring 1 out of every 3 possessions, where Wake is 2 out of 3 or 3 out of 4, like you said.
Yeah, that should be interesting. All right, the big one in the Big Ten, Michigan State versus Ohio State. This one sits at 19. I'm curious your thoughts on this one. I think initial reaction when you see 19, you probably are like, wow, Michigan State's getting a lot. But you really think about this, you think about Michigan State's poor pass defense. If I had to lean one way or the other, I'm probably going to skip this game. I think there's a very, very big chance Ohio State rolls this one up and puts it on Michigan State pretty hard here with that poor pass defense of Michigan State.
Yeah, my gut reaction here is to take Michigan State, but then I've stopped to think about it because 19 points is a lot for 2 teams separated by I think 2 spots in the playoff committee's rankings. So you look at it and you think, wow, they don't respect Michigan State at all. But then when you really look at the play style and how these teams have performed, you really can't trust this Michigan State defense against this Ohio State offense. It seems like everything Ohio State does good is exactly what Michigan State struggles to handle. So I definitely lean Ohio State here, but I'm not going to really make a play on this. It's going to fall probably right around the spread, and it depends on how much Michigan State fights. That coach has got to earn his contract now, so we'll see.
Yeah, I'm curious if this gets into a shootout. Can Michigan State win that style of football game, getting into a shootout? They've sort of won games dirtying things up and covering up their defense, but not really getting into shootout, making a key play here or there. If this goes shootout, it's the over-under total sits at 68.5. So, I think they're thinking shootout here. Can Michigan State win that type of ball game here, or just too many weapons for Ohio State? They will be more efficient scoring the football.
I think it's similar to your analysis of the Wake Clemson game. Michigan State's going to want to have long, drawn-out possessions, long, many drives with a lot of plays. You're looking 10-plus play drives just to kind of take the air out of the ball a little bit and keep this one close. I think if they do that, they probably stay within the 19. But even still, I like Ohio State to win this game.
Yeah, if you could send Oregon's defense over, I put a little bit more love on Michigan State's side of things, but I just don't know if they can hold up. They do have that, running style that, Ohio State struggled with versus Oregon and versus some other teams, so far this year. But I just don't know if they have the defense that is, capable of sort of bothering Stroud when he's shown he's gotten pressure, he's been bothered. But I think guys are going to be flying so wide open that it probably won't matter so much. I think if you're making a play on this game, I think you probably just got to eat it and take those 19 points for Ohio State, just based on the sort of defensive liabilities that is Michigan State. But they have their chance to sort of prove themselves here, Michigan State. They've gotten a little bit screwed over in the rankings. I found it hilarious that the other day when they were saying, when you look at the metrics, I was like, oh, well, okay, look at the metrics, but they played head-to-head.
What?
You can't look at metrics either in college football all that much. Nobody plays the same schedule. You know, you could play terrible teams for, 11 games and have great offensive metrics, and then you play one good defensive team. It's not the same looking metrics NFL to college football. All right, let's go to Texas versus West Virginia. That aforementioned Texas Longhorns West Virginia matchup. Texas. This is going badly quickly here. Now 4-6. They have to win out to get to a bowl game. I don't know if they will do this. I will say I saw this number and I was a little bit shocked that West Virginia was a 2.5 point favorite. I think coming in, I was hoping maybe West Virginia would get that plus at home on the nooner and I could get a little bit of an advantage here. Do not, that Kansas game sort of ruined that here, but I'm curious your take on Texas, West Virginia here.
So one thing we've talked about the past couple of years is, we always like the West Virginia nooner when those guys have. Anything I'm looking at other than that 4-point spread is like, hey, West Virginia's got this, but something in the back of my mind thinks that this will just be the one Texas gets. Simply because everything I'm thinking thinks is I should take West Virginia. So I'm I'm kind of going against my logic here, but I have to lean Texas here. I think I like getting 4. That's a big number right there. Even though it is a road game at West Virginia, Texas has been hot and cold. There's been times they look good that they get up on guys they can't finish games, but West Virginia's been pretty hot and cold too. So. Like I said, this could come out and just be exactly the way the rest of the season's gone for Texas, and they will drop this one too. But I like them getting points, honestly.
Yeah, I think that's why I just had to do the cross off here. I don't know if West Virginia possesses the offense that can really, break down this Texas Longhorns defense. That being said, they gave up 50 to Kansas last week, and while I think we all respect Lance Leopold, it wasn't like Kansas was throwing up 30s every week so far this season. So I just don't know what I'm getting out of this West Virginia team. You mentioned their hot and coldness. We were both on them on that Iowa State, game a couple weeks ago. Then they follow that up with getting drubbed by Oklahoma State at home 24-3. And then they get drubbed by Kansas State 34-17. And even that 34-17 was sort of being kind in that game. They were pretty much out of it from the start of that game. I just don't think that would lead me to take West Virginia. But from what I've seen from Texas, the last 3 to 4 weeks, I just don't know if you could trust taking them. Getting just mauled by Iowa State and then having Iowa State come the next week and get beat by a Texas Tech team who doesn't even have a coach, and then, losing to Baylor, losing to Oklahoma State, losing to Oklahoma, then that terrible loss to Kansas. I read something where Texas has been up 7 points in every game this season, and yet somehow is 4-6. And I think that probably just sums up the Sark experience in a whole. But I can't take West Virginia, but I probably am not going to touch Texas the rest of the season. So that one's just a stay away overall for me on that. But I am curious to see if Texas can sort of right this ship or to see how bad it gets, because I'd be very curious. At what point does the
Did they
record
get
reach?
desperate enough?
Yeah, the record reach where they start talking $20 million buyout for first year Sark there.
I mean, there's a lot of money there. I could see it happening. I mean, especially if he loses out. I haven't looked ahead to see who they play this last week of the season. So, I mean, anything can happen in college football. It's nuts. Some of the decisions that are made with that money.
Yeah. All right, let's move to one of the, I think it's you and I, one of our favorite games on the weekend. UAB, UTSA. They're calling it the biggest game in Roadrunners history here. 10-0, UT San Antonio, 7-3 UAB. They're matching up. This will be for the essentially the division title. Now, they each got a game next week, but I think both these teams have shown this will be the decider for the division title. On this side, looks like Western Kentucky probably going to come out of the other side. Really great job that coach did with them as they, had that massive, tough schedule at start. And I think they started something out like 2-4, 2-5, and they were able to right the ship and just sort of beat up on once they got into the easier part of the schedule. But I think we both think these are probably the two top teams in this conference going head to head here. I know you've been a big Roadrunners fan all year long.
Oh, yeah.
4.5 point favorites here. Can they pull this off? Can they beat the, I probably call them, they've been the most consistent team in Conference USA the last handful of years. Can they beat the UAB Blazers here by 4.5 points?
I think it's going to happen. Now, a lot of that's probably my heart talking here just because I fell in love with this UTSA team. But I love the way they run the ball. I think their rushing attack's probably one of the best in the country. And UAB, they've been okay. They've been taking care of business kind of like they do, but they really haven't impressed me in many of their games. Whereas UTSA is just, I think they've covered against the spread, I think 8 times this year. So they've been really good to make some money off of. And I like them again this week.
Yeah, I'm a little bit torn on this one. I think my heart lies with UT San Antonio, but my brain is telling me you're giving me plus on UAB at 4.5. In a situation that UAB has been in numerous times. Like I said, this is the biggest game in UT San Antonio history. So do they start to buckle under a little bit of that pressure? I think this is where, UAB having some losses probably helps them out. They're under no pressure to try to ride this out and go, and have an undefeated season where UT San Antonio, this one, 2 more, they're on an undefeated season. So I'm really curious how this is going to play out.
College football playoff, UTSA.
I would. This is why we need to expand it up, because it would be fun to have these guys in here, would it not? Have UT San Antonio playing Notre Dame in a first round game. How fun would that be?
That'd be awesome.
Maybe they get killed. Okay, they get killed. They go away. Notre Dame goes on and gets killed by Georgia or Alabama or Ohio State. But it's a fun weekend to see if UT San Antonio can, win that first round matchup.
UTSA is to Notre Dame as to what Notre Dame is to those SEC schools. It's just like you said. I think the separation of talent and experience is the same there.
Yeah, definitely so, all right. This one's an interesting one because I thought this spread was, just way too huge. Now, there is still some questions with the quarterback's health, but I think they rested the quarterback last week versus Notre Dame purposely so they could have him in this game and try to get into that ACC title game.
Yeah.
Virginia, Pittsburgh, 14.5 for Pittsburgh. That just seems like a whole lot of points for Virginia team, who I think's offense has been just as impressive and just as potent. I hear all this talk about, Pickett, but I think the Virginia quarterback's been just as good as he has if you watch these games. So I don't think there's that much separating these two teams. But maybe there is. I'm curious your take on it.
Yeah, if Brennan Armstrong plays, I think 14.5 is a tremendous number, and I'm taking that all day. I haven't made a play on this yet because last I saw he was still questionable, but we know how these college schools are. They keep that really close to the vest until day of game. So I definitely look for that line to move a lot if they announce that he's healthy and playing. It'll probably drop under 10 at that point. But both of these teams score a lot. It'll be a back and forth game, really quick touchdowns. Look at a lot of the overlines here. First quarter, first half, you're going to be back and forth. It'll be interesting how many punts there are in this game, if any.
Yeah.
But 14.5 for the division. Real essentially, this game is for the division to win and go to the championship game. So that's a lot of points for that's what's going to be a really hard fought, emotional game.
Yeah, definitely so. I think the play is easily Virginia if the quarterback plays. I'm assuming he's going to play. I mean, there were rumors last week they had fitted him for like a flak jacket and he was going to play in the Notre Dame game. So
running backs that last week too. So
yeah, So I think they purposely made a decision last week that we just got to punt this Notre Dame game, get our guys healthy. Let's try to win this ACC because I think. They're just as dangerous as Wake. Wake and them played a really entertaining game. I think it was about 6 weeks ago on Thursday or Friday Night Football. I think we were both talking about that one, when that one went down. And it's just, I think Virginia, if they can pull this off, has just as good a shot as, the other couple teams left in there to win that ACC. So I think they made that decision last week. So they put themselves in position this week to win this one. So 14.5 just seemed like an awful lot in this game. So really, really curious how this one plays out. And if the quarterback plays, I think it could easily beat Virginia, especially from what we've seen, from Pittsburgh's defense. I know Virginia's defense hasn't been all, wonderful, but it's not like Pitt has been shutting teams down. They got lit up by Tennessee. They got beat up by Miami. They got beat up by Western Michigan, who I don't think has won a game since and has been dying in the MAC since then. So, I see no reason why Virginia can't easily go in there and win this one. All right, let's go to a big one in the SEC. Arkansas, Alabama, 20.5 point spread. Interesting game here. A part of me thinks this is too many points for Alabama here. I kind of like the 20.5 on Arkansas. I don't really think they will be in position to win this, but I do think, Arkansas's defense can contain Alabama a little bit. If you go back to last year's game, it was Mac Jones' worst passing game. Now, I don't know how much you bring into that, but, they seem to struggle versus Arkansas defense. Alabama's offense definitely hasn't been as explosive. I'm curious if they try to figure out more and more of the running game in this one, thinking they need it for Auburn, Georgia, and maybe a run in the playoffs if they get there. So, how aggressive are they going to be passing the ball? And I just think Arkansas can stick around in this one on a 20.5 point spread. I'm curious your take here.
Well, I think really the story of the game is going to be Arkansas's lack of ability to go over the top on Alabama. I think Alabama is going to really pressure this quarterback into making mistakes. And, I really just can't take that spread. I think Alabama is going to dominate. That's just my opinion. But I just think Arkansas is going to really struggle against this Alabama defense, who's going to, with their athletic linebackers, they're going to play up tight, rush this quarterback. And I see a couple interceptions coming this way that could lead to some points for Bama.
Yeah, you mentioned it. I think that's where the scary part of this comes. How much can Arkansas score on this Alabama defense? How much can they create? Especially if they get, a little bit behind the down and distance. If they can't get those, nice early option runs to put themselves in second and third and short, can they move the ball? Now, I will say, Alabama struggled with Florida and a similar option attack and running quarterback here. So maybe they can find a way to sort of grind out some yards. Now, I think Alabama's defense is a little bit more experienced and a little bit more prepared for that than they were in that Florida game, especially after they got up so big and then sort of had to turn things, back on after they seem to have shut things down. But I do think this Arkansas defense can hold the Alabama offense in check, and if you could do that, then, you can sort of stay in these games. I don't know if they have the capabilities of winning it by any chance, but I do think they could stay in and around that 20-point range in this one. Next up, Southern Miss, Cincinnati. Southern Methodist, not Southern Miss. Though the way this is going, Cincinnati might have a close game with Southern Miss as well. But Southern Methodist, Cincinnati, 11-point spread here. Basically, I don't think Cincinnati's covered a spread since the Notre Dame game. And they've somehow managed to make things much, much harder on themselves than they seem to need to. This is probably the best team they've played other than Notre Dame this season. I think SMU's much, much better than Indiana, especially if what you've seen from Indiana all season long. SMU gets their running back who has missed essentially the last two games. He played a little in that Houston game before getting hurt in that one and then missing the next game. And he's their best player. So I'm curious, is this a spot where Cincinnati gets upset? It feels like the pressure is getting to them a little bit this season as they're trying to close this out week in and week out.
Yeah, this is one I really like here. I definitely like the 11.5 for SMU. I just, and that's probably more for lack of trust in Cincinnati. I've just watched this team throughout the year. They just continue to underperform and barely limp by. I think that's why they're not in the top four now. Partially because of their schedule, partially because, even with their easy schedule, they don't blow these teams out. I think it was Tulane they struggled with and a few others, but I definitely like the points here and probably eyeballing that money line for an upset special as well.
Yeah, I can't seem to get off Cincinnati here. I feel like they're going to blow one of these games out eventually. They seem to play better in, versus better competition. So I think they might be able to cover this one. I don't think I'm going to take it, but the running back returning for SMU does make me a little nervous because I think he becomes probably the best player on the field at that point. If anyone hasn't seen him play, he's really, really explosive, good running back. But my eye is on more next week at East Carolina closing this puppy out. And I was going to tell you, but then I didn't want to tell you any more conference championship bets with long shots involved and have us ruined in the first weekend. But there is a minor way that East Carolina can end up in that AAC championship game. Now, Southern Methodist would have to beat Cincinnati, and then Cincinnati would have to go down to East Carolina and lose that one there. East Carolina will have to win the next two, this one versus Navy and the next one versus Cincinnati. But I looked it up, and I wanted to tell you a token another long shot championship if some puzzle pieces fit right. But I decided against it this time, basically just so we don't curse ourselves and hang our hat in shame 24 hours after we make the play. But I do think Cincinnati is going to at least have one game where they look all right. But I have my eye more on next week, but it would not stun me with the way they played if SMU goes in there and finally sort of knocks them down off that ledge that they've been teetering on for quite a while. All right, next up, this isn't really a game of the week, but I was curious on your take because I have a play on this game. Nebraska goes to Wisconsin here. Wisconsin is 8.5-point favorites. Nebraska has not won games, but I really like the 9 points here in this game from the Nebraska side of things. it feels like these two teams are very similar defensively. They were similar for most of the year on offense before Wisconsin finally decided their quarterback was never going to touch the ball again, and they were just going to hand the ball to their running back, while Nebraska still seems fit to let Adrian Martinez ruin games for them here. So I'm curious your take on this one, just because I had a big hedge here on Nebraska, thinking they will stay in this game like they've stayed in numerous games so far this year, and maybe eventually one of these pops and they actually win one.
Well, I've actually, I think 2 out of the last 3 weeks I've gone against Wisconsin on the spread, and I've lost because all of a sudden they score 30 to 40 points a game just because they run the ball every play. So I'm staying away from this one. I don't think Nebraska's going to stay in this one. I think this is going to be, and honestly, I think Wisconsin's offense, the way they're running the ball now, will be good against this. I just, you may convince me. I don't know. I hate to go against Wisconsin and get burned yet again.
Yeah, I know. I've been going against Wisconsin and getting burned. But I just feel like Nebraska has been there pretty much covering this all season long. Now their win-loss record,
solid defensive front.
Yeah, their win-loss record does not look good, but their ATS is pretty solid, and I think both you and I, picked up on that pretty quickly and have benefited from it. Now, the only thing that does scare me is, of course, Adrian Martinez versus this Wisconsin defense. I assume he's going to give them some sort of freebie touchdown in this, so you probably have to factor that into your handicapping, as Wisconsin might not have to score too many points if Adrian Martinez gives them a pick six and a fumble on the 10-yard line for them to have a freebie score. But I just feel like Nebraska's been in these close games all season long, so I see no reason why they wouldn't be in this one, even if Wisconsin has sort of found their life. Now, other than the quote-unquote Iowa big win, they're scheduled the last, closing out was Army, Purdue, Iowa, Rutgers, Northwestern. It hasn't been like they've run through a gauntlet, and the Army game was 2014, so... All right, let's move to the other big game on the small school front here. Louisiana Lafayette Ragin' Cajuns at the Liberty Flames. I think we both are excited about this one. Both have a play on this one. Lafayette plus 4.5 here. So I'm curious about this number. Maybe Liberty has a better home field advantage than I think, but I'm not sold that it's going to mean all that much, especially in a season where Liberty is 7-3 and pretty much lost every major game they've played so far this season. So I'm curious, this line at 4.5, why do you think it's so big on the Liberty side of things when Lafayette has pretty much, after that Texas game, done what Lafayette does, beat people up and win games?
Yeah, I don't understand this spread at all. I don't know what Liberty has done to earn getting favorites here, except like you said, being home field. I haven't really been impressed with their NFL talent quarterback. I think, like you said, every big game he's failed to really show up. And
if you lose to Monroe, you're probably going to lose to Lafayette. That's a motto I tend to live by.
Yeah. So I love Lafayette getting points here. I think they're a much more disciplined team and better coach team, I think. And this is one of my biggest plays of the week for sure.
Yeah, the only thing I could work my way through was Lafayette probably more concerned with winning the Sun Belt. Now, that being said, they already have their division clinched. I think they clinched it in week 3 of the season. I mean, this is a non-conference game, so it doesn't matter to them, but they already have their division clinched. They're already going to be in that Sun Belt title game, so they can take this game a little more serious if this was, a game before, a game they needed to sort of seal up their Sun Belt title game chances. But that could be the only side of things where they take this game, take the money for this game and sort of, pack it in and go like, we care about winning the Sun Belt, not about beating Liberty. We have nothing in common. We don't recruit the same people. It's sort of like hand us our paycheck for coming to play you and let us fund our athletic department, and we'll move on, go win the Sun Belt, and go to the New Orleans Bowl for fun and pride.
I don't know. I think there's some bragging rights in this game too. So
Well, that's what I thought. With having already clinched the title game, they can rest guys in the next week or two before that, big showdown. Probably with Appy State, a couple things could, go a little different. Georgia State still has a minor chance to get in there, but Lafayette, Appy State, rematch, probably on the cusp. But I think the fact that they have the Sun Belt division locked up means they're going to play this game and try to get this win. So even more reason to take that 4.5 on the side of things. All right, next one. Definitely not a game of the week, but I have a play here. I was curious on your thoughts on this one. Florida goes to Missouri.
Do we need to talk about this game?
We need to talk about it because I want to hear your thoughts on it. Missouri getting 9 points. I'm feeling itchy to take Missouri in this one. Coming off the big showdown versus South Carolina with a big win, 31-28.
No.
Florida is coming off the big showdown of giving 52 points up to Stanford. And then the previous week in their big showdown
Not
was
Stanford.
Sanford. Sorry. Sam, no T, Sam. The small southern school that is not even remotely in the middle of the pack of their FCS conference title race. So, and then Florida the week before played the mighty South Carolina. They got curb stomped by them. So I want to take Missouri here. Missouri could get bowl eligible with this one. For anyone, this is why bowl games don't mean anything. Anyone who's watched Mizzou play, and the fact that they are a game away from being bowl eligible pretty much speaks to the absurdity of teams getting bowl eligible. But I'm curious your thoughts on this one.
I think Florida should be able to take care of business, but Mullen can't overthink this. I mean, the key to beating Missouri is literally to just run the ball every play of the game and just keep handing it off. I would run, read option, run my quarterback, run my running back. I wouldn't even, put the ball in the air with a chance to make mistakes. Now, Florida's going to have to get a defensive stop, which they've proved. I still trust Florida and Mullen, however crazy that sounds, more than I do Missouri.
Yeah. All right. You're still riding Florida. I have a little itchiness about Mizzou. I don't think I've taken Mizzou all year long. So I'm about to pull the trigger, I think, the first time all year. All right, let's move out to the Pac-12. UCLA USC. This line confused me because UCLA is only 3-point favorites here. Did I miss something about USC where they weren't getting trounced by every team they play? How much different is UCLA than Notre Dame here? Are they not just going to run it straight down their throats and beat them up? This seems like a really short line to me here, but maybe I'm missing something. I'm curious your thoughts on this one.
Yeah, I think this is way too small of a spread here. I think UCLA's, throughout the whole season, even with their losses, they've been a better team than USC, and they haven't lost as badly as USC has. So, and home field when they're, both these LA teams, that's not really a factor here, especially since USC can't get anybody to come to their games.
No one's coming to this game.
Yeah. So, I like UCLA. I haven't put a play on this yet, but I probably will add it. Just because I think more of a no trust in USC than UCLA.
Yeah, you could pretty much break it down just looking at USC. Their 2 wins are a 7-point win over Arizona, who's possibly the worst major team in college football now that Kansas has shown the ability to win football games. And then Colorado, which also is bordering
They
in
can't
and
score.
around. But then they played Utah, Notre Dame, and Arizona State, all teams in and around the same ability as UCLA. They've lost 26-42, 31-16, and 31-16. So why would it be different than playing UCLA? Who's coming off said 44-20 win versus Colorado. They played a tight game with Oregon. I just think this is a pretty easy runaway. It was another line that I was shocked was so low, judging by what we've seen from USC so far this season and how they were going to be capable of playing with them. All right, let's go to the Big 12. Pretty fun matchup here. Baylor goes to Kansas State. Kansas State 1-point favorite here. I like Kansas State in this one.
Yeah.
But I'm curious if you think that win with Baylor over Oklahoma will sort of spin them into better and better play. But really, I don't think people have been paying attention to since Kansas State has sort of gotten healthy again. They had that stretch where the quarterbacks and a couple of their defenders were beat up. But since they've gotten healthy, they've reeled off just wins versus TCU, Kansas, West Virginia, Texas Tech, beat up most of those teams pretty good. I think this Kansas State team is sort of the sleeper that no one's paying attention to. And I think Baylor going there, going to struggle a little bit, but I do think it'll be an entertaining football game.
Yeah, I think this is everything was building up to that game with Oklahoma, and going to Kansas State's a really tough atmosphere to go into with like you said, a Kansas State team that's surging and playing their better football this season. So I think the stars are aligning for a big Kansas State win here.
Yeah. Also weird, 5:30 start time. I don't think we see many of those. The 5:30 kickoff. That's like old school late 90s.
Sundown kickoff.
Yeah, ESPN2 style kickoff time. So I'm really curious about this game. Should be some old school fun football too. To sort of smash mouth football teams like to control the line of scrimmage. I'm really interested in that one. But I think that one, I know it looks weird coming off the Baylor win, but I think there's real value there. Kansas State, pretty much a pick 'em at home versus Baylor, when I think these two teams are pretty much really, really similar. All right, let's get to the last big one here in the Pac-12. Oregon going to Utah, probably going to be replayed in 2 weeks for the Pac-12 championship game. This one, I've cooled on a little bit. I think probably 2-3 weeks ago, I think we were both ready to jump on Utah. They did make them the favorite 3. I sort of want to take the Oregon Ducks here, but I'm not quite ready to pounce on it. I'm curious your take on this game.
Yeah, this is the game of the week for sure here. I love Oregon getting points here. I think this game is not going to sneak up on them. Now, that may be different next week. I think they're ready for this one though, and I like Oregon going in and getting a win. I like them getting points. Now this is going to be a close battle, but getting that 3, I really like.
Yeah, I just have a feel Oregon's going to grind this one away. Their defense is going to overwhelm Utah a little bit too much. I think people are forgetting Utah went into Oregon State. They struggled there. That offense is a little bit hot and cold. It's gotten much, much better since the beginning of the season. But it seems when it comes up against a defense like Oregon, they probably will struggle a little bit. And I think Oregon will be able to grind this game out. I'm just curious if Utah's front line will be able to block Oregon's front line, and there's the advantage there, and that's what Oregon gets here. It wouldn't shock me if they win this one and then end up losing in the Pac-12 title game.
I think this game, like you said, it could come down to Oregon's defense making a big play, a sack fumble or a pick six or just something where they create points there. But I see the formula for success here is probably similar to what Oregon used when they beat Ohio State.
Yeah. I was going to throw this at you too. If you want a little boost in this game, the money line sits at plus 135. Now, you can do a little bit of a tricky play here. Oregon sits at plus 300 to make the playoff. So you could take the plus 300 here. They would have to win this game to make the playoff. And then if you get into the Pac-12 championship game, if they win this game, they'd probably be about a 160 favorite like Utah is. So you could protect it in that Pac-12 championship game. It'd be a little bit of a tricky way to sort of balance your books. Now, plus 135, you might not want to fool with it, but there is some value there on that 3-1 get in the playoffs. You could play it here, assuming they'll get the win here, and you got good money. So maybe a thought on that, but you'd have to do a lot of quick math to sort of balance those books. But there's a way to make money off that if you think Oregon's going to win this game here. So those are our games of the week. Not a huge slate of games of the week, but at least a handful of really, really important games this week. All right, last week we both got a little bit of a struggle last week. I ended up going 6-7 overall. You had your coldest week in about 6 weeks at 3-7. That put you at 66, 68, and 2. I'm down to 70, 66, and 3 for the season. But we'll see if we could get back here on week 12. I really have a good feel on week 12, so I'm excited for my slate. I'm curious about yours this week. How many picks you got for us this week, Dynamite?
I only pulled the trigger on 9. I kind of wish I'd added some more. Maybe I'll tweet some out and throw them at you. Maybe you'll let me add them onto my record, even though I don't say them today. But I've got 9.
All right, 9 for you. I got a few more than 9. I got 11. I've probably been in and around 11 for the last handful of weeks. So why don't you kick us off? What do you got for us first?
First off, I'm going to take some heavy favorites. I'm going to take App State minus the 9.5 at Troy. I think App State does a really good job at handling the games they're supposed to handle. So I'm going to take them covering by double digits there.
Well, that's one of your plays last week that gave you a win going against Troy. So ride that pony as much as you can. I'm going to go with Wake Forest plus a 4 versus Clemson on mine. So that'll kick my things off. Wake Forest plus the 4 for me.
Next up, I'm going to take a big dog. I'm going to take UL Monroe plus 28.5 at LSU. I also have given one little side eye at the money line here. This seems like an LSU team that may be ready to give up on the season, get ready for their new coach, whoever that may be. And UL Monroe has been a upset play quite a few times this year. And I like getting the 4 touchdowns plus a little bit of change there. May make some play on some upside action as well.
Yeah, we're on the same wavelength here. I like this as a dead spot for LSU. That Arkansas game, probably their last sort of stand, basically the most meaningless of meaningless games here. And UNL Monroe has done this a couple times where they've gone in there and just sort of surprised teams. They do have good coaching, probably better coaching than the other side of the ball. So 28.5 really seems like a lot of points here. And you mentioned it. I might take a look at the money line here in case this is one of those where the team just totally packs it in and guys looking to get NFL drafted are looking to get NFL drafted and not play a late November football game versus UL Monroe. All right, what do you got for us next?
Next up, I'm going to take, we just talked about this our last game. I'm going to take Oregon plus the 3 at Utah. I like the Ducks here, especially getting the points, but I think they're going to win outright.
All right, nice. Going with the Oregon plus the 3. You got a little bit more in you than I have right now. I haven't talked myself quite into doing it. Next up for me, Boston College minus the 1.5 versus Florida State. I think these two teams are about similar. Florida State going up To Boston College, it's going to be about 40 degrees and rainy. They aren't going to like that. I think Florida State put a lot into that Miami game to pull that win off. So I think they're going to be a little bit down. They also have the next week. They have Florida sandwiched in there. So I just think this is a brilliant spot for Boston College. Between the Miami-Florida sandwich, a lot of effort went into that game. A Florida team traveling up to Boston in a game is not going to be very fun weather. So I like Boston College minus the 1.5, especially with a quarterback back for the third week now. I think Boston College can steal this one.
Well, I'm going to stay on the West Coast. I'm going to take Oregon State plus the 3 versus Arizona State. I think this is a back-to-back big road trips for Arizona State. They probably flew back home, slept a little bit. Now they're flying back up into a really tough place to play, and the Beavers are getting points, so I'm all over that.
Yeah. We are on the same wavelength on for sure on this one. Oregon State getting plus 3 at home versus Arizona State, who the rumors have already started to fly about Herm losing his job. They went up to Washington, went back to Tempe, now going back up to Corvallis. That's just not going to be a recipe for win. Oregon State's, bowl eligible for the first time since I think it was like 2007, I read. Just a wonderful job done by Jonathan Smith there to get this program back. I think they, put a nice win here over Arizona State and continue their progress into good football play. I think that's a wonderful spot for Oregon State, getting plus at home versus a weak sort of Arizona State team on the road. They've really struggled on the road. All right, what do you got next for us?
Next up, I'm going to take Louisiana, the Ragin' Cajuns, plus the 4 at Liberty. This one we already talked about. I'm surprised they're getting points here. I think they're the favorite, and they should be the favorite. So I like getting points with Louisiana.
All right. Guess what? I also have La Lafayette plus the 4.5. So a lot of similar picks this week for us. I just think this spreads off. La Lafayette's a much better team, really on both sides of the ball, offensive and defensive line. Liberty hasn't shown the ability to sort of hang with those kind of teams. So I look for the same thing to happen here. The only way this goes bad is probably if Lafayette doesn't take this game very serious because it's a non-conference game. But I think they go in there and smash them pretty good. What do you got next for us?
Next up, I'm going to go with my Roadrunners minus the 4.5 versus UAB. This may be a heart play, but I'm going to keep the momentum going, and they're going to keep riding and win big here and dominate against UAB.
Yeah, my next one, UCLA minus the 3. We talked about this one. Just think this line's way off. Definitely think UCLA just smashes these guys, especially after the way they blew that game last year. I think this one just gets rolled up pretty easy. Pretty easy win for UCLA. 7 wins in so far this difficult schedule that they played. I think this is a pretty successful season. So I think UCLA rolls this one pretty easy. What do you got for us?
I've got SMU plus the 10.5 at Cincinnati. Like I said, I don't trust Cincinnati to cover a large spread here, so I'm going with SMU.
All right. Next up for me, going to ride Nebraska plus the 9.5 here. Been riding them all season long, getting these sort of big spreads. They don't ever win these games, but they're always a close game. So, I'm not going to break tracking that trend all of a sudden just because Wisconsin has decided they're smartly not going to let their quarterback cost them football games anymore. So 9.5 for Nebraska for me.
So on this next pick, we didn't talk about, but I'm going to take Illinois plus the 12.5 at Iowa. Iowa hasn't been the same ever since dropping that first game. And Illinois tends to keep some games close, and they're scrappy, and I like them getting 12.5.
Yeah, I liked that, but with Blylema not being there, I'm a little bit nervous about what sort of Illinois we get. I think he's the only brain trust that somehow figures out a way to win these games. So without his brain on there, it makes me a little nervous whether Illinois can maintain. But they, like Nebraska, have been a good underdog pick, all year long. All right, next up for me, I'm going Kansas State minus the 1 versus Baylor. We talked about it. Kansas State really been rolling since they've gotten healthy and sort of found their rhythm on the season after a little bit of a sort of bad stretch there. But I think they're as hot as any team in the Big 12 right now. So I'm going to roll with them in Manhattan this week over Baylor.
All right, for my last pick, this is going against everything, my knowledge that I've learned in the last few years and just betting against the spread and West Virginia in general. But I'm going to take Texas plus the 3, the noon game in West Virginia. I just think this is going to be one they get.
Well, that couldn't lead to disaster or anger text as Texas is up 21 and then proceeds to give up 35 unanswered points.
Let's just say I won't have any parlays riding on Texas this week.
All right. I got 3 more. We're going to go with these are all borderline bad teams versus bad teams. But Colorado plus the 6.5 versus Washington. They haven't been good, but they've at least played hard. I don't know if you can say quite the same for Washington. So Washington going on the road into Colorado. Coach is gone. That offense is just a complete and utter just disaster. If you watch that Arizona State game, honestly, Arizona State was sitting there ready to be beat, and Washington literally could not maneuver to get any points in that game. So I think them going down to Colorado and giving 6.5. I don't know if points will even be scored in this game necessarily, but Colorado at least I think has played hard, so I think they cover this one. Next up, I talked about them a little bit. East Carolina has been getting better and better each week of the season. -4 at home versus Navy. I'm going to ride that. It's a little bit of a dead spot with the Cincinnati game coming next week. They got bowl eligible for the first time since they stupidly canned Rufus McNeil a handful of years ago. That program seems to be back on track, but I just think the -4 versus Navy, they should be able to take care of business with the way they're playing, even in a sort of dead spot. And then lastly, I'm going to go with your favorite. I'm going to ride Mizzou plus the 8.5 here. My first Mizzou experience on the year, but from what I've seen from Florida, yes, Mizzou will probably not stop them, but I'm not 100% sure Florida is stopping them. And one team beat South Carolina, the other lost to them pretty badly. So I'm going with the team that beat South Carolina in this one. So I'm going to take the 8.5 versus Mizzou. Plus, I think that weather will be a little bit crappy as Florida goes up there. So I think we'll ride the 8.5 there with Mizzou. All right, that's our show for the week. We'll be back next week for our college football recap and picks, probably a little early, with Thanksgiving falling on our normal Thursday spot. But we'll have our shows for you. Be sure to be there. Dynamite David with us as always, checking out of Club Dynamite. We might grab him in studio one of these days. That's our show. And we're out.
Greenlight Network presents Football Time.